Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you're watching us from in this beautiful world of ours. You and I just realized it's raining in Canada, it's raining in Australia. So I just saw this slight delay on the going live part. So I hope that we're going to have great internet because that sometimes messes with our internet when we have strong rain. So without further ado, I'm really excited to have this lady next to me on the podcast because I just recently was very honored to share my story on your podcast, Lift OneSelf. So I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience, NatNat, because I'm just really excited to have this conversation with you today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And I am very honored and privileged to be in this space and be with your listeners. And it was such a delight to have you on the podcast because you brought a different perspective to grief. And
Mm.
I mirror the same. So, in a world that wants to see it in such a polared way, it's like bringing a refreshing way. It's like it's nice
Mm.
to just be in such a conversation of ease and flow. So, I'm
Yeah.
NatNat. I do emotional healing and I'm a nervous system guide. So I really understand the nervous system and I
Mm.
understand how it can be so difficult to feel our emotions and vulnerability and really understand our biology.
Yeah.
And, grief I've been navigating since I was like 11 when my grandmother transitioned. So
Yeah.
I've known that space of the other side of love, that's what I call
Mm.
it,
Yeah.
and the abyss that doesn't have grounding. And
Mm.
so, navigating through all that and almost coming close to death 11 years ago for my own self, and really going through
Mm.
the veil of what you think death is, and really
Yeah.
coming in with surrender and acceptance. And
Here
just
comes my cat.
recently,
I knew she'd
oh,
be doing that.
yeah.
Sorry, just
Um,
recently.
um, yeah, well, you know what? It's great when we have pets that understand we need some emotional regulation and they
I love
come
it.
right at the right time. Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
perfect.
recently I just am navigating through grief because my dear friend transitioned in November. And
Mm.
it was a 2-year, journey with cancer and then 8 days of
Mm.
hospice. And she transitioned in my arms, taking her last breath. So I
Mm.
had the immense honor to
Yeah.
experience that. So, there's a lot of depth, a lot of lived experience. I know a lot of times it's a lot of academics when you hear about nervous system or trauma or
Mm.
emotions, where I
Yeah.
bring the perspective of lived experience and practicality.
Let's talk about that straight away because I do want to hear your story, obviously, and I really want to create a space to share this here. But I so often talk to people about that difference, the lived experience when you work with something, when you are, it doesn't matter. Why are you so antsy? Oh, it's raining, and she's so clingy when it's raining. She needs to be on me and I need this space here. So when we talk about, like people who work in the healing space, whether that is as a counselor, whether it's as a coach, as a healer, as a, you know, somebody who regulates the nervous system, that it's just everything that touches on not just the physical, but the emotional healing. There is such a deep difference that I feel when I work with somebody, as in when I'm on the receiving end, when they have lived experience. It
You
is
see what I,
just something that you cannot learn in theory, right?
no, you can't.
Yeah.
It's that when people are in my space, they're able to co-regulate with my nervous system. There's a
Mm.
profound depth of listening that I do, that
Hmm.
I allow space for emotions to enter in, where
Yeah.
people finally feel seen. And
Mm.
most of all, they feel safe to be
Hmm.
honest, to reveal the
Yeah.
things that feel so unsafe with so many other
Mm.
people. Where if I heard this, the amount of times I hear this sentence of, I've never shared this with anybody and I'm not
Hmm.
quite sure why I'm sharing it with you, yet it feels safe to reveal this. And when they do, it unlocks a part that has been hidden to them.
Yeah.
This is what we call about the shadow work.
Yeah.
Basically, the shadow work is your authentic emotions that have been stored and repressed and pushed away, that
Hmm.
it doesn't feel safe to allow these energies, emotions, frequencies to pass through the body.
Yeah.
So we repel them. And where people talk about the ego is the defense mechanisms of the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And trauma is actually the imprint. A lot of people think it's the event that happened when it
Mm,
isn't. It's the imprint that was put onto the nervous system that defined this emotion, this processing that wasn't able to process as
mm-hmm.
something unsafe. So it creates a
Mm.
narrative of protection to keep you away from the space
Wow.
between stimulus and response. So
Mm-hmm.
once you can understand that rather than trying to fight something or trying to die of the ego, it's like you need your nervous system. So understand it's always in a method of protection. Is it a
Mm.
frustrating part? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
irritating when there's certain patterns or behaviors that you no longer want to do, yet they're just knee-jerk reactions. And it's having compassion and understanding of, oh, you've protected me so long in this behavior
Mm.
that it's going to take time to actually embody. We intellectualize a lot of things, and it's really
Mm.
great to
Yeah.
intellectualize and have theory, yet to
Mm-hmm.
really catch it in your body when all of a
Yeah.
sudden you feel yourself rigid or disassociating, or
Mm.
all of a sudden becoming prickly, or you're shutting down. All those
Mm.
kind of things that the body has wisdom, we tend to ignore because they feel like an
Yeah.
inconvenience.
Yeah.
Yet once you can start embodying, there's a different connection.
There's always, correct me if I'm wrong, but what just came up for me while I was listening to you was there is always that moment of surrender, that moment of surrender to what is, where you stop resisting it, where you stop trying to fight it, ignore it, or just put it in a corner as the inconvenience. I don't want to deal with you. Once we surrender to that, or in particular, also go to the what is actually causing it, that the being seen, that really resonates with me. We all have that deep need to be seen in who we truly are, with all of it, with the pain, with the happiness, with the talents that we have. We all have that need to be seen, yet society comes in and helps us quite quickly to mask it, or cover it up, or ignore it, or label it as ego, or whatever. There's all these steps that happen where, as children, we are so natural about it, we're so innocent about it, we're so stepping on the invisible stage, and claiming the attention. But then things happen, a comment is being made, or how dare you, or children don't speak unless they're spoken to, or all these old-fashioned things that luckily don't happen as much anymore, but that you can still see them as a result in our generation, or people older than us, where that is still very much present, that belief. So I know we've gotten right into it, but I'm gonna have a bit of a pause button here and go back to. Would you mind sharing your story? You touched on the grief that you've experienced since you were 11, and um, you have literally witnessed a few people that were very close to you transition in your life. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that so we understand your background as well?
Oh boy, we
You.
have a long list to get into then. As like I said, my grandmother, when I was 11, I think it was 11, either 11 or 12.
Mm,
Um, and she was like a mother to me.
mm,
So that was a really significant rupture for
yeah.
myself. And I didn't, I knew something was going on, and I was denied to say my final goodbye to her. So I held a lot of resentment with that, and
Yeah.
didn't appreciate that the adults made me feel like what my intuition was telling me was wrong, that I was just
Mm,
a child and I couldn't read what was there.
mhm,
And, I've had a deep intuition from a young age.
mm,
So in that, I separated from that. I hid it. I didn't trust
mm.
it. There's
Yeah.
been other, griefs of friends that have been murdered. A friend of mine, her son was murdered on her birthday. I've had some friends that were chased after police and suspected drowning. I've had children where my son's friend at 5 died of cancer. I've
Yeah.
had other ones where there's been SID, where, babies have passed away before a year.
Yeah.
Had other friends that fell asleep at the wheel, died in a car crash. I've
Oh
had
my
other
goodness.
ones where they were celebrating their mother's birthday dancing and just dropped down and died. So I've experienced a plethora of different
Yeah.
types of death, different
Wow.
ones where, there's illnesses, so you're prepared, other
Yeah.
ones where, violence, other ones where it's just natural death that just shocks you. So I've experienced a plethora of the shock that, happens in your nervous system of rupturing a story and a reality that you've been in and having to
Mm.
acclimatize into a new reality. And,
Yeah.
our suffering is always wanting to hold on to what we knew rather than being
Mm.
able to enter into the new as is. And it's very, I'm
That can we just say that again? This is so powerful, and I want people to pay close attention to exactly what you just said. Suffering is.
suffering is rejecting the as is of reality
Mm.
and wanting what was there before.
Yeah.
And
Wow. Yeah.
and and let me be mindful, because when a nervous system is dysregulated, it will hear this as an attack. You're
Yeah.
telling me I'm wrong for feeling the way I'm feeling. And
Thank
this
you for
is
saying
not what
that.
I'm saying for
Mm.
anybody that's going through this. I bang my head constantly sometimes with reality because I want to reject it. I don't want to feel the vulnerability. I don't want to feel
Mm.
the helplessness, the
Mm.
depth of sadness, or, the grief.
Yeah.
Yet I've cultivated the tools to recognize when my system's going into protection, to allow it to feel and
Mm.
honor what these feelings are trying to give me as information.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, the old story gave a sense of safety. Now I'm in
Mm.
this new reality, and the physical body may not be here. I know energy doesn't die, so I can talk to them
Mm.
at any time that I want to. Not
Yeah.
everybody has that belief. Not everybody has that
Yeah.
knowing. They think that the body
Yeah.
is the only part of connection.
Yeah.
So recognizing that nervous system is communicating in a different way. So allowing
Mm.
a surrender, allowing an opening of that other side of love. Yet
Yeah.
suffering is rejecting the as is of reality.
Mm.
And we do that constantly. And we're,
Yeah.
even with the words, like I remember in our podcast how you had said, I really don't like having the word loss in my
Mm.
vocabulary anymore, because
Yeah.
it really solidifies that suffering part, where
Yeah.
it's like it wasn't, I didn't own this.
Yeah.
So this
And
is a
it's also
part of,
it's not just the suffering part that I totally agree with that. For me, it was also, and first and foremost, the idea of when I think of Rob in particular, because I've witnessed a few people close to my heart die, way not as many as you, I need to say. Yet I have experienced a loss. I'm going to put this under quotation marks for now, in very different ways. And with my dad, I certainly experienced it as a loss.
Mhm.
That's the way I felt. That's the word I would have used, and maybe even in hindsight would still use for him. With Rob, I had been in such a different state, not just in my own journey, in my own mindset, also in the way that Rob and I communicated with each other, Rob and I lived with each other. And due to the loss of my dad, I had learned to live my life from a completely different perspective, from a
Mhm.
very much present and in the now. And I am going to burst if I don't tell you I love you every single day, not out of fear that I could lose you, but out of so much emotion if I don't share that with you. I needed to tell him, and he was the same. So when Rob transitioned, that's how it felt to me. He transitioned into a different realm. For me, it was this going home part, and it certainly felt way too early, way abrupt, and unexpected for me, because it was unexpected. Rob had a brain aneurysm, he collapsed and died. So there was no, oh, we need to talk about this, we can prepare ourselves for this. It was none of that. It was sudden and unexpected. And because of what I've been through before, because of what I've worked on before, because of how my mindset worked already, I had this spiritual epiphany that this was part of our soul contract. I call that spiritual epiphany now because it was such an aha moment and a recognition moment from a soul level that changed everything for me. And that's why the word loss doesn't feel suitable anymore for
Mhm.
Rob. It was
Mhm.
this transitioning part. And I I love that you brought that up because the wording I feel that we use in the space of grief in particular is so important because it can change everything. How we feel through it, how we are able to accept that, acknowledge it, and work through it and open ourselves up for healing and love. There's so much love and so much sacredness in all of that, you know.
Yeah,
Mm.
and allow the helplessness to be in there.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
a
Thank
deep
you.
helplessness in that, and we
Mm.
don't give language around that. Many
Yeah.
people don't even know how to articulate what that feels like and to give it a name
Mm.
and allow its space to coexist with you. We're
Yeah.
repulsed by it because it's so yucky feeling, it's so vulnerable, it's so depth and so activating fear that we don't know how to lean into that. We are told to repulse it and act like it doesn't exist. Yet if we invite it in, it isn't hijacking our behavior. It isn't causing so much dysregulation because there's so much conflict that I'm going to act like you don't exist.
Yeah.
Honor the space of that feeling. And the more that you can recognize and give it verbiage, it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It is so important, you know, it sounds so easy and it probably is very simple but not easy, you know. It's the recognition of what's actually going on. And what I love about what you just said, and that's why I want to highlight it for everybody listening to this here, is the simultaneous the simultaneousness of it. Is that the word? I don't know if there's a noun for that, but that feelings can happen so simultaneously in the space of grief. And I just talked to a gentleman about that yesterday. What I just shared, you know, just before we came live, we had this beautiful conversation, a 3 hour conversation about grief, about this space. And he'll come on the podcast as well. So I don't want to take too much away. But there is this, it is absolute normal, and everybody will agree to this when you say, oh, all emotions can happen simultaneously and all at once or one after the other in one day. You know, you can be sad, you can be happy, and then you are frustrated, and next minute you're exhausted, and then you have this, you know, like there's so many emotions we feel in one day, and everybody knows that it's completely normal. Nobody would ever try to negate that. Yes, we do feel all of these emotions, and then somebody dies and all of a sudden everything changes. No, now you're supposed to be sad every single day and you're supposed to hold on to that for the rest of your life because grief will stay with you forever. And I'm like, no, no, and no, it's not true. Maybe that's your reality. Maybe that's a filter that you have learned that you now look at everything. But why does it change? Just, and I'm going to put that under very big and very respectful quotation marks, just because one person passes does not change the fact that we can experience all of the emotions simultaneously. I love it. And that to me does not feel disrespectful at all when there is laughter at the funeral, because it
Hmm.
highlights how much fun and joy that person brought into the room. You know what I mean? And why
Hmm.
would I hide that at a funeral? Because to
Hmm.
me, I don't even like the name funeral. I much prefer to talk about holding celebrations of life because that to me is what it needs to be. We come
Hmm.
together to celebrate the person's life. And why wouldn't there be joy and laughter in the room and love? Because that's really why we all come together, right?
Yeah, we
So,
danced at Natalie's celebration of
oh,
life in the
I
church.
love that.
We put
I
on her
love it.
song and all the girls came up and we all danced to a
Yeah.
song. And you can be in that sadness and the best thing to be able to process the depth of grief and the helplessness and the sadness is to move your body.
Yeah.
Yet many of us stay stuck with it and
Mm,
don't allow ourselves to let the body express it. A lot
mm,
of, people that are going through deep grief, and if they know how to be a death doula and really
mm,
hold space for people, it's like let your body move, dance, find its way to express. Don't
mm.
analyze it, don't be analytical or intellectual. The body will find its way to somatically release what cannot be expressed in words.
I love this. I love this. I love that you dance at Natalie's funeral. I'm having visions of it. I really love it. What was her song?
She's Royal by Taurus Riley. So it's
Oh,
a
I have to
dancehall
look it up
song.
now. I don't know it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Now, how did you get into the work that you are doing now, and how do you actually help people? We've touched a lot on a couple of things already, but I'd really like to give that a bit of a platform so you can share about what you actually do.
Well, I almost came close to death. I had lesions in my
Mm.
brainstem and my cerebellum 11 years ago. And I was told I only had about 6 months to live. And if I did live, I wouldn't be walking, I wouldn't be functioning. Yet, thankfully, I discovered meditation a year after because I still don't have a diagnosis. So that means you don't have a plan. You don't have a place to find, your remedies. So I went inwardly. And by doing that inwardly, I was able to, really release the imprints of the trauma and those somatic, energetic, and emotional charges because I had sexual trauma as a young child. So that left a real mark in me. And by doing that meditation and going inwardly, it released a lot of knowledge and wisdom that I just intuitively know and holding that space. So, in that, that's where, when I came back online and the neurosurgeons and the neurologists, like, what are you doing? Because we don't know how it got here and we don't know how it's reversing. So it sounds like some mindfulness. So just keep doing what you're doing. And so in that, that's where when I started, like, in my meditations, it just came clear of this is something other people need to have.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just sat with it. And that's where the name of my company came up, Lift OneSelf. So it was lifting the ego, which is the defense mechanisms of the nervous system to come into that one self that we are all a part of. Yet you need to be able to connect to your vulnerability. Yeah, when we get ruptures of people transitioning, we armor up that vulnerability because it doesn't feel safe to uh, reveal that. And if you don't have
Yeah.
safe circles that will allow you to be messy and ugly to let that process go, then it's difficult to be in that space. That's why it's so important to cultivate these safe spaces that you're not going to analyze and people aren't going to make meaning of it. Like grief, don't make meaning of it because your nervous
Mm,
system will find more negative than the positive parts of it if you don't know how to always continuously reframe. That's what your nervous
yeah.
system is bait. It's finding problems. So
Mm,
honor why it's built this way, and then also use the tools of how do I reframe my perception. So
mm,
the way that I do this with clients is it's connecting into their nervous system and also allowing them a space to finally feel the emotions. Like when I see it, it's like, hey, come out, come out. And then
yeah.
that's where they start to do the unraveling. And,
Yeah. But it's
is
also
it,
such a safe space that you create
hmm,
when you sit with the client and for them to be allowed to actually name and acknowledge the emotion. Mm,
exactly. And feel it. It's the
mm,
embodiment.
yeah.
It's one thing to say I'm feeling this, yet to actually feel it is a
Mm,
different level
yeah.
and a different part. And most people want to overcome things. I talk about integration. You're not trying to
Hmm.
get rid of anything. It's
Mm,
integrating it so it releases its charges so you can be
yeah.
whole with a W
Oh,
instead of these
yeah.
holes with an H.
Mm,
So there's going to be parts that are prickly and uncomfortable, yet you honor of why it is you're here to have a human experience. Yes, you're spiritual, your energy is never ending, yet we're not here for perfection. We're here
mm,
to understand what the human experience is. And unfortunately, this world has condemned what it is to be human. They
mm,
want you to be without emotions because it's an inconvenience. The
Yeah.
sensitivity makes it that you're not able to show up and fully in certain aspects. To
I
slow
also,
down time.
exactly, I just wanted to say that. I love that. That just came up because when you just said that, emotions are an inconvenience, I instantly had this come up for me as in, we live in such a fast-paced world and it's getting faster and faster. And how can we even make this faster and instant? Everyone, I read something this morning, a friend of mine did a 3 months detox off Facebook. And I'm like, brilliant. I love it. I love that you do that. I mean, everybody can think about Facebook what they want, if it's right or wrong, or it has to work for you. But when she talked about it, what it actually meant, the slowing down, when you have a WhatsApp message sitting there or a text message and you don't respond within 5 seconds or 5 minutes. So it's like, how dare you? Like, why you're not, we expected to respond instantly to everything because we've got it on our fingertips and everybody knows that you've got your phone on you pretty much all the time these days. And for us to go back to, you know what, I don't have to have my phone on me 24/7. And even if I have a text message sitting in there for a day or two or three, I will respond to it when I make the space to do that and not just use it as a tick list because I want to respond and not just tick something off the list. And
Mhm,
with that, I feel we've created something where there is no space for the emotion anymore because it's too fast. It's not
mhm,
just the inconvenience, but also there's just no space for it anymore because it slows us down. And we're so
mhm.
fast paced that I find that more and more so important that every single day to create those, even if it's just 5 minutes, where you just sit and be and feel,
Would
and
you join
listen.
me in a mindful moment?
Yes, 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 please.
Okay,
Let's do
so
it.
we can show the
Love
listeners
it.
what that feels like. Um,
Perfect.
so whoever is listening audio, and if you're driving, please do not close your eyes, but the other prompts you're able to follow. So Maria, I'll ask you to get comfortable in your seating, and if it's
Mm-hmm.
safe to do so, gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose, bringing your awareness to watching your breath go in and out. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to be aware of its rhythm, allowing it to guide you into your body. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up, and it's okay. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop deeper into your body. Now, there may be some thoughts or to do lists, or you can feel the antsy in the body, and it's okay. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping deeper into your body. Being in the space of the breath, of being. Again, more thoughts may have popped up. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating even more space between the awareness and the thoughts, and completely surrendering into the body, into the breath, into being, and just staying with that breath. Now, while still staying with that breath, being in your senses, at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while staying with your breath. And this is a space where we can create and slow down things for ourselves. It took
Yeah,
2 minutes.
it is incredible. I love, love, love that. And that's exactly what I meant before, even if it's just 5 minutes,
Mm.
it creates such peacefulness instantly. And I love that you have the word breathe behind you. And I know that I shared this with you before. I do breathwork sessions every Tuesday now and use what I learn throughout the week. So for me, when you guided me there, I'm like, bring it. I'm all in. I just love how quickly you feel so peaceful. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome.
Wow. Oh, I don't even want to go back to my normal speed in my brain, but we are pretty much at the end of this. So I need to
Yeah.
ask you this, NatNat. If you could highlight one thing of everything that we've talked about today, and you feel you could wrap that up with a little bow for people to take away from this podcast, what would be the number one thing that you wish that everybody can really take into their heart and move forward with that in life?
To better understand their biology. The
Mm,
world will tell you you're not good enough or you're doing it wrong. Yet to come back into trusting yourself, trusting your intuition,
mm,
also to remember to be kind to yourself in your process.
mm. I love that. That's beautiful. We have not really talked much about your podcast. However, I want to and will leave that for people to experience. So we will be sharing the link to your podcast, Lift OneSelf, in the show notes. And what is your preferred way that people get in touch with you?
Liftoneself.com.
Okay, perfect. So we'll share the website, we'll share the podcast, and maybe even some social media handles if you want to. But please come back, have a look in the show notes, connect with Natalie with NatNat. There you go. It came out once, but I do stick to NatNat. I really love that, and I just want to thank you for being here and also for doing a quick live demonstration with me. How quickly you can really come back home and really sit in that peacefulness and I want to recommend that to anyone. And if you want to know how, just reach out to NatNat. The links will be in the show notes. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing yourself and your stories and your beautiful energy with me. I so appreciate you, NatNat, and have a beautiful day. Sending you a big
Thank
hug
you.
to
I'm
Canada.
sending you a big hug and I appreciate this. And I also want to thank Rob. I want to
Oh,
thank
thank
Rob for
you.
being in this space.
Thank you. Oh, I love that you say that. It was 20 years yesterday that I met him. So
Hmm.
I love that you brought him in. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's a
That you
reason why you had
acknowledged
that
him.
conversation yesterday and how it
Oh,
clicked
yeah,
in.
absolutely. Absolutely
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you so much. Everybody, have a beautiful day. This is NatNat and